I guess we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance.
Oh, that's right. I forgot.
Okay.
Pledge allegiance
Allegiance to
To
the
the flag
of the United
States of
of
America,
America,
and
to the republic for which it stands,
and
one
one
nation, under God,
God,
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
for all. Okay.
Well, I'd like to thank everybody for taking the time out tonight to join us in this new way. I think this is a good way to tonight will be a good test for this as a method for conducting these meetings going forward. And I think it may be ultimately a good solution for us to allow people to hear from wherever they are. Like I said, Tim's coming in to join us from Greenview. We'll get Tim here so he can get back to the festivities there at Tres Hombres. But first, with roll call, Angel, do you do that?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
Jim Morris,
I'm sorry, what?
Jim Morris,
Oh,
Here.
Rebecca Rupard, Corey Booth,
I'm here.
Janelle Bednera,
present.
Diana Dorauer,
Here.
Paula Brown, Janice Tyler,
Here.
Helen Gross, Darlene Schmidt,
Here.
Chris Gilstrap,
Here.
Denise Gilstrap, Gloria O'Keefe,
Here.
and Luke Hagedorn.
Here.
You have a quorum.
Very good. All right, we'll take a look at the minutes from November 4th. You also have gotten copies of that in your email leading up to the meeting in the packet here going forward. So I'll give you a minute to review that, and then I would entertain a motion to approve. Anybody with a motion?
Motion
I'll
to
make the
approve.
motion.
Okay, we have a second?
I'll second it.
All right, all in favor?
I'm sorry, who made the motion?
Oh, yeah,
Chris.
Okay. And who's second?
Darlene.
Thank you.
very good. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed? Motion carries. Okay, I'd like to welcome Tim Jacobson to our meeting tonight. We, in the discussions of economic development as well as events and things like that, Alderman Ross and I actually had discussed this outside the meeting, that we thought it might be a good idea to invite Tim in to come visit with us and from his position, which before we invited him, that position, since we invited him, he's moving on, and I'm sure he can get into that a little bit. But we're glad to have his perspective on economic development, events, and the like. So we'll let, with that, I will turn it over to Tim. Let Tim give us his presentation here, and then allow him to move on with the rest of his evening's festivities. So Tim, appreciate you taking the time out, first of all, and the floor is yours, sir.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity to be here and talk with y'all. I have a lot of passion for Lake of the Ozarks and always have. And I just had in the growth of my career, I had an opportunity to move on to Fort Smith, Arkansas. I'll be working down there for an organization that oversees their Convention and Visitor Bureau, their Convention Center, and their economic development. Economic development has changed over the years. I'll never forget 15 years ago when I started this position as executive director of the Convention and Visitor Bureau, Joe Pottinger, my predecessor, told me that it's not just about promoting the lake, it's about economic development. And economic development is about the quality of life that you can bring to your community. Even through visitation, it's not about the visitors, it's about the economic sustainability of economic spending to bring a quality of life to the residents of the area in which you live. So economic development is really a part of everything we do. Years ago, economic development was just manufacturing, and it's not that anymore. Over the years, economic development has changed, and, economic, spending and economic growth is how you grow an area. I was very adamant about trying to look at economic development projects over the years at Lake of the Ozarks. And one that made the most sense to me was the soccer complex, because the amount of spending it brought in our shoulder seasons to support our businesses and grow our season. We just had some issues with the funding source and how some of the people were dissatisfied with the current way that some of the funding was being handled through the lodging tax, and maybe didn't understand, or we didn't do a good enough job of explaining, exactly what that would do for the community. But, economic development is something that should be on everybody's mind. It should be the forefront of what all of the chambers do. It should be the forefront of what all the municipalities do. And, our local chambers, our 5 local chambers, work very, very hard to just fund themselves. And they get involved in a lot of activities to be able to do that, whether they're membership based or doing events. And I don't mean any disrespect by this, but events are band-aids to economic development. An event brings in economic spending for just a short period of time. We've got some great events, and I'm involved with a lot of great events. Bike Fest, brings, it's a lot of work. It brings in, $10 to $15 million in our community over a 3-4 day period. But I think the focus for economic development needs to be something that brings in $50 to $100 million on an annual basis to make the cash register ring every day. And I will tell you, I think the biggest opportunity for economic development is, $150 million expressway that runs right through Osage Beach. I used to have disagreements with Penny Lyons about we can't promote one business over another. We can't promote businesses on the expressway. Well, the idea is to promote all of them, but the entire expressway. And, when you have and I'm just talking about this one asset, when you have an asset of that sort, you have to reach out and find the businesses that are going to grow in your area. And, it's in economic development on expressways, it's fast food and it's gas stations and things of that sort. They're not going to come to you. You have to go get somebody that goes out and recruits those businesses to come here. And I think that there's a big opportunity for municipalities are so competitive against each other that, it takes a while to make those things happen. And so the municipalities almost have to function independently, but to have some type of economic developer, a paid person, the Missouri Department of Economic Development is almost a turnstile for people who get educated in economic development, go on to the private sector. There are a lot of people out in the private sector that focus on specific types of economic development. There are people out there that are experts on bringing in service stations and fast food. The expressway's been there for 7 years now. And the first real business to locate to the expressway is when McDonald's are relocated. I think there's a big opportunity for, and I'll just say through Osage Beach, with the wherewithal, with the spending within Osage Beach, to hire an economic development person to draw people to that expressway. And I think that's where it starts. I think you have to think big. I'm a big fan of the events, and I don't mean any disrespect, but I feel like that they're band-aids to economic development. They're band-aids to the lake, and we need band-aids. We have to have them. But you can't put all your effort into events. Events take a lot of work, a lot of time, and they pay off for a short period. So I challenge everybody to think about the type of drivers that are going to bring in long-term, continual economic sustainability and spending to the Lake of the Ozarks, especially in the shoulder and off seasons. So, that's something I've always felt over a period of time. It's something I feel I've educated myself on in the years that I've been here. And I think there's opportunities to do that. It's not easy. It's not easy at all, or everybody would be doing it. The soccer complex is a perfect example. It's not going to make money. That soccer complex wouldn't have made money, but it would have turned $70 million a year in economic spending into the community. So to build a $25 million facility that brings you $70 million a year, do the math. So I think that, it would be nice to see more of a regional effort, but that's not the mentality of the lake, the way the lake is broken up by different geographic areas. So each area is going to have to focus on what might be best for them in economic development. But I do feel like that there's a great opportunity to grow that expressway farther than it has. I would challenge you to go look at an episode of 60 Minutes that's now probably 6 or 7 years old. It's called The Golden Triangle. You can Google it, watch it. They had an area, 3-county area that had manufacturing had gone away. They didn't know what to do. They put all their eggs in one basket, went out, hired one individual to bring in business. That one individual brought in Yokohama tires. It brought in a Sara Lee factory, and it brought back growth to that area. And you have to think that way. And it's not going to happen with, the people within our community. It's going to take the effort of going out and looking at experts that are in economic development to attract those types of businesses here. So it's possible to be done, and a lot of times, and again, I don't mean any disrespect by this, but a lot of leadership is based off of what can I do in the term that I'm in office. And a good hardcore economic development is not going to happen in a 4-year term. So you don't see a lot of interest from certain people in elected positions to work on long-term type goals like that. And I just challenge that you look at long-term type goals. If not, okay, the lake will become what everybody else wants it to be instead of what we want it to be or what the community wants it to be. So I think that the vision needs to be clear and to develop a mission, to use the strategies to bring in the right type of economic development. And I'm not just saying this because I'm leaving. I'm a very boisterous person, and I think many of you on the call probably heard me say it before. You have to challenge, all of your leaders in your community, and you have to have the right people in the right places to make these things happen. And people on this call can make that happen. Can lead the way and show the leadership to try to do those types of things, to think long term about the community. Because we don't want to become I plan on the lake being part of my life. I'm going to be a second homeowner, and I don't want to be a TMZ second homeowner. I want to be a second homeowner somewhere I'm proud of, and so again, you can choose where you want to be, or you can let other people choose where you want to be. We don't want the Lake of the Ozarks to be a party place. And so that's my spiel on economic development, what I feel the direction that the Lake of the Ozarks could go. I know that Lake of the Ozarks Regional Economic Development Council, which I'm involved with, they feel the same way. It's just hard to get the funding to be able to come up with $100,000 for a 5-year period to fund somebody to come in and exercise what needs to be exercised to bring those type of developments here. Because the minute you get funding from multiple different areas of the lake and one thing happens in one area and not the other, there's going to be conflict. So it has to be the individual municipalities or counties that go about making this happen. So that's my 2 cents. I appreciate the opportunity to talk to y'all. And, I think I'm easy to get a hold of. If anybody ever has any questions for me or wants to talk more about it, I'm always willing to talk about it. I love growth, and I'd like to see the lake grow in the proper way.
Thank you, Tim. And again, thank you for your service over the years to the lake, and glad you'll still be part of our lake area going forward. Do you have enough time if anybody has any questions to entertain?
Sure. Yeah, I'll make the time.
All right, I appreciate that. Anybody on the panel have any questions for Tim? I might have one if nobody else does.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know how we're going to do this with everybody probably speaking over each other, but I'll go ahead and step in. I think the challenge that we've been faced with, and maybe I didn't make the last meeting, so I apologize if this has been discussed before, but some of the growth that people would like to see requires a very large amount of investment with money that isn't available. So, the theme that I've heard for the last couple of meetings has been got to start small, and that's fine. But I don't know how small some of the ideas that we've had, have been centered around events because they're small, they're cheap, they're fairly easy. But it seems like you kind of get boxed into that discussion a lot around, what kind of events and all that. And you don't really get out of that box unless you can envision how would you fund something of a larger perspective, something like the soccer complex as an example, or revitalizing the outlets, or developing a massive, entertainment district, in an area, or making better use of the airport infrastructure, that kind of stuff. Yeah. I just don't know where these discussions and these meetings would be better served if we understood the possibilities that might be available to us to do a grander scale idea versus always looking small, I guess is my point.
I'll comment on that because it's vision before mission. You have to have the people that have the right vision to develop the mission. How many areas would love to have $150 million expressway sitting in their backyard to develop? You have the asset, you have the traffic on it. You have to just get the right vision, have the mission, and develop the strategies, because the money's there. It may not be directly in the lake area, but people aren't going to call you and do the homework. You've got to go do the homework. And I'll tell you, Richard, I don't know how public it is, but the research that the city of Osage Beach did from Buxton, if you haven't seen it, it's scary how much detail that will give you of who your customer is, what they buy, what they want. And that information can be used to attract the right type of people that are out there that are currently doing development. And it shows you who the customers are already there. So those things are there. And it's not going to be easy. If it was easy, everybody would be doing it. So I agree. You have to get focused on you have to have the vision, and then you got to develop your mission and then have your strategies from that. But there's money. I mean, the money, if you think little, you're going to get little. I mean, you have to take the current assets that you have, and that should help develop your vision that gives you your mission. I think that's just the overall 101 economic development strategy. And there's other people besides me that are a lot more experts that could come in and take that research and maybe do a little additional research and identify down to the exact businesses that you should be talking to that are growing right now. So it's just a matter of realizing that you're not an expert, but you need to be an expert on going to get the right people to tell you what will work based off of research and facts.
If I could tag on to that, just to Eric, Tim, since you brought up Buxton. Buxton was out there. We did 1 year with them. We got a lot of information from them. Of course, we got it in the year of COVID. We do have some, for lack of a better term, I haven't seen it because they've kept it confidential. Some targeted companies, for lack of a better term. I don't even know what they are. They could be hotels or fast food or whatever. But there is some people in our city that are trying to work against that, but we have limited resources at this point. And so I found your economic development director, coordinator, whatever comments very interesting. I think I said in the first meeting, we keep dipping our toes in the water. We either need to get in the pool or get out. And maybe we've dipped our toes in the water and laid a foundation with Buxton and some other things like our Lower Deck participation and things like that. So this committee, in some ways could have some effect on whether we decide to get out or stay with our toes dipped in the water, or we just get in. So anyway.
Yeah, but the Buxton research pulled phone data from way outside of COVID. I mean, and it identifies exactly who the customer is, where they traveled, where they went, and matches them to a dozen different businesses that are out there growing right now.
Right. I just meant
so
that
it was very good information.
Right. I just don't know that we've been.
I'm surprised you haven't seen that yet, Richard. I didn't know.
Well, we've seen some of it, okay, but the list of who their targeted recommended first businesses were, we have not seen. Okay, and I think that's been strategic as to why. The COVID thing, the information is pre-COVID. The COVID thing is what slowed us down. If we had limited resources to pursue the Buxton information, we had even less this year, is what I'm trying to say. So it's
Yeah.
still there. It's not antiquated yet, but and it could be built upon, and it could be we could go right back to Buxton again next year if we wanted to.
Luke,
Yes, ma'am.
this is Janelle speaking. I couldn't agree more with Tim. Years ago, when I sat on the board, one of the things I said was, if we don't define our own landscape, somebody else will do it for us. It fell on deaf ears at the time. I still feel that way. We need an economic developer. And we've been charged as a committee with helping the city find sources of revenue. We've not been given a budget. That doesn't mean we have to look at low-cost items or short-term items. We need to go back to the city with a recommendation, regardless of what the dollar cost is. It's their job to find the money, not ours.
Absolutely.
I do believe we had one more other question.
Gloria.
Was it Gloria?
Well, yeah, because Lori has a racetrack going, and that's going to bring something.
Gravel
So,
area.
and we have property around here. I just don't understand why we can't get that going, or, well, where Janice used to have, and the mall.
Only 12 acres.
Yeah, and the mall itself, I mean, people from all over. I mean, my family comes down here just to go to the mall. I don't know if they want to see me or not, but they go to the mall, So something else has to be done, that's for sure.
Well, I've always asked people, the racetrack, ballparks of the Ozarks, there a lot of these things are happening at Lake of the Ozarks because somebody had passion and wanted to be at the lake. Who has the lake reached out to and asked to come here? I hate to say this, but Gary Pruitt did for Pruitt's Point. It was self-serving, but he did. He reached out and asked people to come here. But it's easy when you can offer them a free building. Janelle, you're right. I mean, you have to reach out and ask the people to come here, or you're just getting the best people that are calling you. Earbergs didn't come here because somebody asked them, had a connection to the lake, had passion for the lake, and they came here. So you have to get on your horse and ride that horse to the places and get those people to come here. The lake is an unbelievable place. I've never brought anybody here from an economic development standpoint that didn't go, wow. And then they try to figure out how they're going to be here. And one of the reasons they're going to figure out how to be here is the quality of life that the Lake of the Ozarks can lend to them. If you can bring something here, the people that work for you here, people that do things here are going to live a great quality of life. The Lake of the Ozarks, and that's what it's all about at the end of the day, quality of life for the local residents that are here.
Yeah. And you guys have mentioned it a couple times with the surveys and different things, pre-COVID, for example. Something that I've been thinking about since the last meeting is post-COVID. And I'm hearing it from all the people that I hang around with. There's a lot of people who are now able to move away from city centers. This whole work from home remotely, this whole Zoom meeting thing. There's a lot of people like myself who are going to find the ability to move to that vacation home and make it the permanent home now, because they don't have to drive into Kansas City or St. Louis anymore, or anywhere else for that matter. And, and it shows too with the condo market. I just had a buddy of mine bought a condo over the weekend, and reports are, typically there's over 1,000 on the market. And I mean, you're scrambling to buy out of a selection of about 100 right now. Because everything, there's a lot of people buying. I don't know if they're buying it for investments, but certainly there's a lot of people reconsidering this as a permanent home versus vacation home these days, especially post-COVID with the change in the way industry is working now. And that's something else to take into consideration in all these discussions.
Corey, you couldn't be more right. I just had Thanksgiving with my family, small family, but I have 3 nieces and nephews that have been out of college for 2 to 4 years. went to good colleges, and they work for, every one of them works for a different major corporation. And those corporations have converted to say, here's the workload we want done. We don't care where you do it at. We don't care what time you do it. This is the workload we need. Go somewhere. I don't care where it's at. Just deliver this product to us. And you're going to see more and more and more of that. And then coupled with we're a drive market on top of it. And then back to the quality of life. Why would you not want to live at Lake of the Ozarks if you can technically live here, earn money, and enjoy the quality of life that's here? There's a lot of assets that are there that other destinations don't have anything. And they're putting their heads together and trying to figure out how to come up with making their communities grow and being successful for it. They don't have the assets that we have here. That's what really, I don't know if that it frustrates me, but it makes me feel like that there's so much untapped opportunity if you can get the right people focused on the right things, because you have all the ingredients. My internet is saying I'm unstable. I don't know what that means.
Well, I think everybody kind of covered the questions I had for you, Tim. So I don't know if anybody else has anything for Tim before we let him go. Alderman Ross?
I'll just have one thing, and it goes back to events, if you will. And I realize your thoughts on it, Tim, and I really appreciate them. But in your mind, is there any gap out there with either type of event or time of the year or something to where that you feel like maybe there's an event opportunity, because we, this thing got started kind of like that way, and make sure we get your feedback that we should consider, because there, in your mind, there's an opportunity there and there's a gap.
That's a very good question. And I will tell you, it's not even just events, it's leverage, because I feel like that, what does the lake, what's the differentiator that the lake has that nobody else has?
Mm-hmm.
There's more watercraft sold here. There's more Mercury outboards sold here. There's more every brand of boat you pick sold here. And we're not leveraging those people. If we brought together all of, just as an example, the marine dealers and the power they have in buying, and went to Mercury as a group and said, this is what we need to happen, whether it's an event, whether it's why is there not a mechanic school at Lake of the Ozarks for every type of boat mechanic? You're centrally located, you got the water, and we sell more. We need to pull all that together and put pressure on them and say, guys, we're buying more of your stuff than anywhere else in the world. Why are you not here? Okay. When I was in Florida, Mercury down there, they have schools down there, and people are having to go from all parts of the country to get there. So I think that any type of boating event like that, there's so many dollars spent in the marine industry here that I don't think we leverage, and what's happened over the years is you have some intelligent people that have bought up a lot of the different dealerships. You're going to end up with a handful of people that own a majority of the different marine dealerships here, when it used to be 50, and they all competed against each other. Now there's probably 5 very strong ones that somebody needs to sit them all down and say, guys, this is what we need to do for the lake overall, because they're all operating individually still. And you can't tell me that you don't have leverage against, and I'll just pick on Mercury again, because I think it's the big dog, but you could go to every one of them. You could go to Yamaha, you could go to Suzuki, any of them. And I guarantee there's nowhere in the world selling more of their product than we are at Lake of the Ozarks. Whether that gets used for an event, it's used for a school, it gets used for some type of economic development driver. And that's where the vision comes in. And you can get those people with the vision together, you develop the mission, you got your strategies, and then you call Mercury and they're going to go, wow, we've been waiting for you guys to call.
Yep.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yep.
Well, again, Tim, I thank you very much for your time, and again, for your 15 years of service to the lake and all that.
Yeah.
So
Good luck.
Here.
Yep. Thank you all very much. So
Thank
if I can ever do anything, just call me. I appreciate it very much.
thank you,
All
Tim.
right.
All right. I'm going to go talk to the Mercury people.
Yeah, we said hi.
Good.
Very
All
good.
right.
All right, that was good. And going forward, I'm going to do my best to try to bring in some other speakers and guests and things like that to some of these meetings, whether it's folks from the city directly or from other outside sources and things like that. In between meetings, one of my personal goals will be to try to recruit some folks to kind of bring an outside perspective to us. And I think what Tim brought to us was very valuable. And I'm definitely going to check out that golden triangle, because I think the idea of an economic developer is a theme that's come up several times in our meetings. That I think, whether we do it now and formally recommend that to the board, but I think we're kind of at least trending that direction. And I think that's something good for us. So with that being said, we'll move on to the next agenda item from Alderman Ross. I was unable to attend the last Board of Aldermen meeting, so I can't bring my own report from that, other than I did, read the minutes and things like that. So, but I'll give the floor to Alderman Ross to kind of give us an update on the city and what's been going on there in City Hall.
Thanks, Luke. Couple things right now. I'll just tell you that we're hot in the budget time. We have been debating back and forth a lot, and the budget isn't finalized yet, but we've been debating, whether we should be utilizing CIT, and Janelle, I know you understand this a little better, but part of our CIT tax revenue, it's 0.5% for capital items that some people might think are nice tos versus have tos, and versus saving or utilizing that money to pay down our debt faster. Because we owe, I think it's around $9 million we still owe against our water sewer sewer system that was predominantly put in back early, or funded back early 2000s through a 0.5 cent capital improvement tax. And so the draft is coming through. I wasn't successful, but I'll take my moment for a second here and try to convince folks that we can live without some capital expenditures and utilize that money to pay down debt. So far, I haven't been successful, but we're not done yet. We'll see. But the budget is in place, or draft has been in place, and tomorrow night there'll be some discussion on that, and we'll see what next steps are. As far as anything outside the budget, I'd say the thing that we have been working on, and it's going to go through second reading, is I don't know if you guys know what I mean by the term shouse, but these, we'll call them, what are they called? Not extraordinary, unusual structures that people have, we have an ordinance here in the city of Osage Beach that you can't just go buy a residential property and build a garage on it, okay? It has to have a house, okay? Well, we've got Corey, there's one up on top of the hill from Harbor Heights where you live. Corey's my neighbor in our neighborhood. And if you go look at it, it's probably 85% garage and 15% living space. And I think that was never the intent. And so we're going to finalize some ordinances and zoning restrictions that keep that from happening. So and I don't know, it depends on the size of the property, but for lack of a better term, round numbers, if you don't, at least half to 60% of your structure in a residential neighborhood isn't for living space, then you won't be able to construct it. Because people are getting very smart. They're finding small out parcels and they're building these garages that have a little bit of living space, and they sure don't look like houses to me. So anyway. So that's what we've been working on. We've been trying to work on staffing. We are short in the police department still. We're short in our sewer department. We're still getting, we're keeping the doors open, but we've got a lot of opportunity there. So if you know anybody interested in being a sewer employee or a police officer, we could use some. Like every other business out there, I'm sure they're looking for good people too. But otherwise, that's some of the major things that are going on.
Cool. I'll kind of dovetail in on this portion of the agenda under the city update, because Janelle and Phyllis and I went and took a tour of the Lee C. Fine Airport after last month's meeting. We'd been to Glaze prior to that, and then Ty Dinsdale was gracious enough to host us again for another tour, and I'll let Janelle kind of speak to it as well. But I think we learned a lot from that trip out to Lee C. Fine, about the history of Lee C. Fine when it had commercial air service back in the day, the amount of hangars that they have out there. And you know, I was really, one thing about joining this committee that that's been personally enriching is learning about our city and learning these things. I'd never been out to Lacey Fine to check it out. I've always heard of it, but I got a good chance to get out there. And we had a good conversation with Ty. I think learned a lot about you know, the possibilities that we may have out there at Lacey Fine. And again, I'll let Janelle maybe speak to what her thoughts were on our experience out there as well. Janelle, you're on mute though. You're muted. Janelle, you're muted. There you go.
I'm muted.
There you go.
I'm not usually muted, ever. I thought we had a great meeting out there with Ty, and it was certainly educational. He's got some fantastic ideas for improvements and increases in size. I know Richard said there's no money and no reason to build more hangars, but there's lots of people in line waiting for them. I don't know if we could look into some sort of a financial arrangement where that structure could work. I don't know. I mean, we've looked at apparently building and renting, but what about other opportunities? The amount of fuel they sell is staggering, but the thing that still keeps coming to mind is the people that use the cities, Sunrise Beach, maybe not Camdenton, but Lake Ozark, that use our airport, and Osage Beach pays for it. Is there any way that we can possibly look at bringing in other cities to assist with our costs? I don't know. I mean, that's something for somebody else, but that's twice now Ty has suggested that.
Talking specifically about hangar additions.
Well, the hangar additions and potentially looking at Lake Ozark and Sunrise Beach for funding.
Oh, okay, I see.
Just some of the other municipalities reap the benefits of the airport, while at the same time, the city of Osage Beach is the one that's foot the bill on it. Was kind of the theme there. And you know, I don't know quite how we would approach it, but like I said, I think Janelle and Phyllis and I all kind of agreed. Yeah, that would ideally that it'd be a great way to get some of these other municipalities or other entities who do benefit from the fact that airport's there, but they just kind of get a free ride there. And that I think that was kind of the theme we got from that.
He keeps a log of where people are going when they come in. So it would be easy to assess what he has and find out what the traffic pattern is.
Cool. And Alderman Ross, while we're on this, and you may not have the full information, but one of the questions I had regarding the city and what happened at Kings Plaza with the straight line winds that came in and did the damage. Do you have a report from the city on that, on what anything further you can inform us on what's going on there, what the next steps will be with that property or anything like that?
No, to tell you the truth, I could see if I can find out before our next meeting, or even if I find out something that, you know, it's important, I could even probably put an email out. I know that as you're facing it, the right side, Randy's side and so forth, somehow they got power back to it, and that side is operating, okay? The other 2/3, the center and the left, if you will, are not. And I don't know at this point, I'm sure I don't even know who owns it. The developer is probably trying to decide whether, along with the insurance company, which is a very slow process. I'm sure, because I've dealt with it whenever Taco Bell's have burned down in the past, whether to rebuild it or to replace it. And so I really don't know what's going on, other than at least, you know, Randy's is still open. That's good, and a few businesses are at least able to continue. And you know, like the mayor was talking about, we hope that the rest of the business can get back open as soon as possible. But I saw somebody up there working on some signage over around the travel place, but I think it was right next door to them. There's some tarps up trying to protect some of those walls, or how would I say? What would I say? The things that are left inside where the roof blew off on the left side, or the south side, if you will. I guess that'd be the south side. And I'm not sure what their plans are.
Other city things, just for everybody's information, the April 6th municipal elections are forthcoming. That's on the, I know that's part of the agenda coming up on the next board meeting, just finalizing those elections. Filing opens on December 15th, closes on January 19th for that. Is that correct?
Yes, I think
Okay.
you got the dates right. I don't have them both in my, but I know December 15th starts.
Okay, so that's that. Also, holiday lights in the city park are going right now. Matt from the Parks and Rec reached out to me through Wobbly Boots, and we sponsored one of the light displays. But that was based on the relationship we developed on Janelle and I's tour with this from back then. And so he reached out to me, and that was the only solicitation that we received on that. And like I said, I don't think that would have happened had we not had that personal relationship. He had my cell phone number. He texted me, asked me if we said I went to my boss, and we jumped in on that. I may actually drive through there tonight after I leave here for this meeting and go check it out. So I encourage everybody to check that out. Also, I was on a Zoom call this morning, and Mr. Mayor was on there, and he did also note that the citywide leaf pickup will be coming up pretty soon here. Those are all the things. Oh, and finally, we took that visit to Lacey Fine. We took the other visit to the parks. I'd like to have another quote unquote field trip at some point. I'm open to other suggestions, but I would like at some point to meet with Chief Davis, Todd Davis, with the police department, and kind of get a perspective there. If anybody would be interested in joining me on that. I have a pretty good relationship with Chief Davis just from years ago when he was the night sergeant and I worked at another establishment, and we interacted there. So I've had good conversations with Todd over the years, and I think he would, I haven't reached out to him, but Angel will probably be getting a call from me one of these days and say, hey, can I talk to Chief Davis? And I'll talk to him about that. But if anybody be interested in that, please feel free to reach out to me via email or after the meeting or however you want to, and I will try to facilitate that. I think unless anybody has any other suggestions. And at some point, I'd like to even just take a tour of City Hall, maybe once COVID kind of dies down a little bit or something like that. But I'd like to, I want to learn more about our city. I think a great part about this group, we're the voice. We all have our own networks, right, of people we talk to on a day-to-day basis. Corey talks about the folks that he's reached out to and reached out to him. And I think that can go both ways. Like, this group can be a real good conduit between the city and the rest of the citizens to not only bring ideas to the city, but also to, get the word out about things. And I really want to help facilitate that communication through this committee. And I think the more we can learn as a committee about the city itself, some of us have lived here longer than others and maybe have more experience and things like that. But, it's exciting, but also I kind of feel embarrassed the more that I learn about our city, because it's like I have lived here for such a long time and there's things that I just don't know. So like I said, I'll reach out to Todd, and then I may send out an email to everybody and kind of let you know whenever I'm going to go meet with him, if anybody be interested in that, and see what he might be able to provide us there. Okay, I think that's all my notes on that. Any questions or comments for Alderman Ross or anything that we've talked about? Janice?
You mentioned the shelves. Is there anything being discussed about the tiny houses? That it's becoming the big deal?
Yeah, and that Carrie Patterson has made some accommodations. And to be quite honest, I haven't dug into exactly what all that means, but we have basically in the R3 districts or R3 zoning, I guess, district, or R3 zoning type, he made some changes there to accommodate small houses. Okay. I mean, I know Lake Ozark, I made a comment on the dais when this first came through, that I think what Carrie has done is actually something much better than what Lake Ozark's done, but for whatever reason, we're not getting the press. But yes, and I apologize, Janice. I don't know it well, but we.
Oh,
we
no, that's fine. That's something that could be good and bad depending on, but if it's zoned right, then it'd be fine.
Yeah, we're not going to allow tiny homes in R1. It would be R3, which is the multifamily areas. And that's about as far as I remember all the details, but there's some details, and that entire ordinance is in the board packet, but there's a lot of pages on that ordinance, let me tell you.
I know City of Lake Ozark is pursuing that pretty aggressive.
I had too, yeah.
So
I had one other thought when Tim was talking and about going after these different people for economic development. is our Wi-Fi in the area, I'm just asking, do we have any pockets of where maybe we should approach to tell them, we need to make sure we have all the Wi-Fi available to the people. It'd be terrible. You really go after them and then there's this big block that doesn't work. I just wondered how does their map show that everything in the city of Osage Beach is covered?
Well, I guess what
I just
little I know
wondered,
about it, right? What little bit I know about it is that, of course, we've got internet with Spectrum or Charter. And from what I can tell, I've never heard much that Charter doesn't provide good internet service to most any place in the city of Osage Beach. Okay, there's been a franchise agreement. Now, as far as the what do you want to call it, cell service type internet, I've struggled at times with AT&T, and although I haven't delved into it recently, I used to argue with them that I pay a franchise tax on my AT&T cell phone, and why I only have one bar. I'm sitting in my house right now. I can tell you 6 years ago, I'd have 5 bars and I can do anything on AT&T. I don't do it in AT&T anymore. I went to Spectrum Mobile because AT&T was so poor in my neighborhood. Somewhere, somehow they lost their, whatever they've done. And they get a franchise tax, but I will tell you, the state limits you tremendously on what you can do. The next thing that will be coming is 5G. I don't know when, but I think we did do a good job of, we adopted some things that were recommended to us through the Missouri Municipal League around requirements for 5G. The 5G providers, the AT&Ts and the Verizons of the world, they want to come in and do whatever they want, and they want it for free. And by the way, when you do 5G, what you have are these little boxes that are like mini emitters or transmitters, and they sometimes need to be only as much as 500 feet apart. And those will have to hang on the city right away, probably. And so I think we did a good job of setting ourselves up so when it comes, the city's going to get treated fairly, but we're also going to be reasonable to work with the cell providers so that they can get 5G in whenever they want to. But we're still a few years away from that. They're just now getting it in the big cities.
Well,
that's what I know about it.
That's great. But I just know that if we go after some of these larger businesses, they're going to expect it like they did in the city. And so I just wondered if we had something kind of looking at it.
What little bit I can say is, and if anybody else has the information, please jump in. But I think that we're in pretty good shape with Charter. We're not as good as Gravois Mill. I will tell you that. That Gravois Mill has some of the fastest internet in the state of Missouri. I don't think there's only 2 or 3 places that has faster internet. But that was done through some government funding that, is it Como or whichever one it is up around Tipton, and through that electric service. So they're very lucky over there. I was not happy when I found out about 3 years ago that there's better internet service in Gravois Mills than there is in Osage Beach. But there was some unique funding that they got, and we're in a franchise agreement with Charter. And when that franchise agreement comes up, and I have no idea if it's 2 years or 20 years, but I'm sure it's somewhere in the next 5 to 10. If I'm involved, there'll be a lot of scrutiny around, are they providing what we need?
It's good.
Janice, I sit on another committee with Tom Sullivan from Charter, from Spectrum. I'll reach out to him too and see, and just kind of gauge, and find out a little bit more about that. He'll know exactly what areas are covered and what aren't. And I can, like I said, I've got a meeting with him coming up, so I'll talk to him.
Thanks. Well, like I say, it was just something that kind of struck me, because I know we have some people down on here, even though it's not in Osage Beach, that they have to go to their phones to get the internet. And so I just thought maybe that's something we should be in advance, kind of checking with Charter, saying, are you in good shape? If we do get advanced, that type of thing.
And especially the discussion we had earlier about folks perhaps relocating down here and working remotely. If there's not the available Wi-Fi or I guess broadband to do so, that may not encourage that as readily if it's not available. So I think that's and with the fact of remote learning for our students, the fact that all of a sudden it becomes almost required to have a good internet connection to get a good education. I think we would be underserving our students if that, you know, for anybody who maybe doesn't have access to that to actually get their education, because so much is going remote. I just noticed Mizzou is going, they announced just today that they will no longer have any snow days, because if a snow day happens, they'll just learn remotely. And I can see a lot of our school districts going there as well, and things like that in the future, now that they've kind of popped the bubble of the remote learning. You know, for better or worse, we're there. And I think, you know, having affordable, available broadband internet is crucial to business, to education, to daily life.
Just something. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Anything else under that topic? In that case, we'll move on to promotion of City Osage Beach. One thing I want to say here, because, and going back to the city lights and the leaf pickup and things like that, I was looking to double check the hours on the lights. I went to the Facebook page for the Parks and Rec and to the City of Osage Beach Facebook page, and there was no mention of any of it. There was an event for last year's light effect, or light park that I found for last year, but there was nothing on there. I just, you know, we talked about this early on in that, where I feel like the city may not take advantage of as much of some of the free promotional things there. So I don't know.
You mean like social media and things like that?
Yeah. Like I said, like if you go to the Parks and Rec page right now, there's nothing about the light park, right?
Okay.
And like I said, and I didn't know, it was because of my personal relationship with Matt that he reached out to us to solicit a sponsorship. You know, a simple Facebook post on that, or any. There's a lot, like I said, and I say Facebook, and Facebook is its own thing, obviously, but it's free, and it's easy, and it would take 30 seconds for somebody to put a post out there to say, hey, come check out the light park, or hey, we're looking for sponsorships. And I just don't think we fully take advantage of those, and sometimes you get social media fatigue and things like that, and I can understand that, but at the same time, I think we lose some opportunities there if we just don't take advantage of that.
I believe that it's important. I was looking at the vacation news, and all the things that are advertised in there are what the cities are doing. And there, I didn't see anything with Osage Beach. Why?
Good question.
And and then just because I work for Viper and KRMS from time to time, and I'm aware that the community calendar that they have, where you can make announcements on there for free. You just got to send an email to the right email address, and they'll include that on and they have a big listenership, and again, another free option. And maybe because there's I don't know who would necessarily be in charge of something like that.
Is that Angel?
Sorry, I wasn't directing at you necessarily, but those are the type of things I think we can maybe take a little bit better advantage of as far as promotion of the city.
Well, I will tell you, that is me, and that is my main job, and we do send out press releases all the time, like multiple a week, and so it's up to the media to then post that. So the most we can do in that regard is the press releases. Our website is full of the holiday lights and information.
The website's great.
Right. And you are correct. I just looked at the Parks page. So Parks, the holiday lights is a city event. So they post it on the city page, and they're supposed to share it to the Parks page. But you are correct. I just looked, and it is not on the Parks page. They did post it back in October looking for sponsors, but they have not updated it since. And I will say the other problem with Facebook is when we do post almost daily. So then you start losing those posts. So yes, we need to do a better job of keeping those posts pinned or putting up to the top. We've also learned not to create events from all the things we learned through social media, because Facebook does not promote events. So we're better doing a post and boosting that post to get it promoted. So that's why we've quit creating the events themselves.
Fair enough.
But yes, but you are correct. The parks page and then the city page has not had the lights on there. I'm not sure what happened there, but we will get that fixed.
Cool.
But our website does have it.
Yeah, and I should have said that. That's where I ultimately went to find the information I was double checking for. So
Right. And I did not know about the KRMS community calendar. I'm going to find out about that, but we do include them in our press
Right.
releases as well. And we do promote on funlake.com as well, our events. So
yep. I know just for your Barbara Bunch is who I always send that. And there's a dedicated email address for that, but I just always, anything we do when we do a charity event or things like that, I just send it directly to Barbara just because, again, I have a personal relationship with her. I don't know if you know Barbara or not, but
no, I don't.
okay. Well, I'll maybe look up the actual email address where you can send that stuff to.
That would be great.
Yeah, I'll get that your way. Cool.
All right.
Awesome.
Thank you.
No problem.
Sorry. Go ahead.
No, and I wasn't. I had no.
It's okay.
I had no idea that was direct.
We should know these things. So I can't keep, but you're correct. We have 3 Facebook pages and our website and Twitter and Instagram, and I can't always keep an eye on them every day. So
No,
I appreciate it.
I get it. And I love I follow Osage Beach Twitter all the time, and I'm always interacting with that as well because I think it's funny. All right. Anything else under the promotion under C there on the agenda?
Yeah, perhaps. And this is coming from someone who's new, but I posted a link there in the chat. I don't know if anybody has seen that before, but it's almost like they're trying to do the same thing we are, but more at the, all 3 counties combined, but it's, incentives to move your business to Lake of the Ozarks is the title. And then it goes through a variety of different little tidbits of information, more not focused strictly on the city, but I'm just curious from a promotional aspect if we've ever worked with this department. Are they valuable, or is it just
Are you talking about
yet
LoreDeck
another
in general, Corey?
Right.
Yeah. Well, our city administrator is the president of LoreDeck.
Yeah.
And so, sorry, I'm trying to jump back and forth because I looked at your chat. LoreDeck it's a great organization, but it's very limited. And mainly because, in my mind, because it's predominantly governmental participation, whether it's schools or whether it's the cities or the hospitals and so forth. And so, that's what LoreDeck has struggled with. They don't have enough funding. They'd love to have a economic development coordinator across LoreDeck in the lake area, but that's always been the challenge. There's no funding for it. And I've made the comment before, in the vacuum of leadership or the absence of leadership, somebody needs to step forward. And I think that's really what's going on. And Tim hit it right on the head. We have a tremendous amount of energy and people working in a very fragmented way around this area that, in some way to unify it would be the nut that nobody's cracked in 30 or 40 years down here, in my mind, at least. So, but LoreDeck does some nice stuff. I attended it for a year and a half, fairly regularly. And what I found is that there's not much, there's generally no participation, and that's not completely true, but it probably 98% of participation is from the government agencies. So.
Anything else on that topic? Moving on to events, new and existing, obviously, we've talked about that a lot, and I did at the last Lake Area Chamber of Commerce meeting, I brought up during that portion of the meeting about our interest in working with the chamber. Corey, who is the chair of that committee, was looking forward to the help and would like to work with us on that. It just, the timing of having that meeting and getting with him kind of negated ability to kind of put together a group. I know Janelle and Dr. Brown and a couple of us were going to get together, but it just took me a minute to get with Corey, and then this meeting kind of, with the holidays, kind of crept up on us. So I will continue to pursue that and try to put those groups together to talk about those events. And like Tim said, an event would just be a Band-Aid, but I still think those are the types of things that can be, beneficial, even if it is a small benefit. I think it's beneficial, and I think it'd be good for the community. So I do want to do that if anybody has any further comments on that. Move on to marketing options, which I guess we've kind of covered under, it's kind of the same as promotion of the city. So I don't think there's anything further unless anybody has anything to pipe in there.
Not on that subject. I just have one plug for something off that is outside this committee before we leave.
Yep. Well, that would, I guess that would come under F, other suggestions. So Alderman Ross, what would you like to suggest, sir?
It has nothing to do with this. It's just that I'm involved in Lake Ozark Rotary, and Candyland is open. It opened today. It's up at Stonecrest Mall, and if you want to help some kids that may not otherwise get some Christmas, then we'd be glad to help out. And if somebody wants more information about that, please be glad to reach out to me. It'll be open Wednesday through next Friday.
That was actually mentioned in the chamber Zoom this morning. Speaking of other things to promote, but while on that topic, isn't there another location other than?
And the Y.
The Y.
And the Y. And the Y.
I
The
knew
Y's been open for a little while, but the Y's I assume they aren't out yet. I haven't checked, but the Y's got canes. So if they're more handy to you, that's great. Also, I will just say that we usually end up at the last 2 days of Candyland are crazy because we have usually not as many people pick up canes, and so we end up going and shopping for 50 to 100 kids. And we decided this year that we weren't going to wait to the end. If anybody wants to go shopping, come by. We'll get you some money and some lists, and you go shopping, because we'd really like to get it done further ahead of time and not be the last minute. We have been so blessed for the last, 10, 15 years in Candyland that somewhere between the last 3 to 5 days, some lady anonymously walks in and says, how many canes you got left, and writes a check for about $100 a piece. So if there's 100 of them, it's a $10,000 check, and which is wonderful. But she doesn't shop, which I don't expect her to. She did great.
Right.
But now we got 100 kids we got to go shop for in the next 3 or 4 days. And so we decided to do this a little different, because it doesn't matter whether she stops by or not. The Rotary is going to make sure that those kids are all funded. And so if anybody has any interest, stop by, give me a call. We'll get you set up. Please, we'd be glad to have extra shoppers.
Well, personally, Richard, I have more time on my hand this time of year than normal. So if I can be an assistant there, I don't mind masking up and going doing a little shopping myself. So
cool.
Feel free to hit me up on that, or I will pursue that with you a little bit later.
Sounds good.
Cool. Speaking of, so like I was saying on our Zoom, I learned about that on our Zoom this morning. The Lake Area Chamber of Commerce every Wednesday morning at 9 o'clock hosts what we call the Chamber Connect. It's an opportunity to come in. Typically, both Mayor Morawski and our mayor from Osage Beach join that call. Tim Jacobson's on that call often. Obviously, Casey from the chamber. It's usually a group about a little bit bigger than this size, but I've been getting a lot of good information on that and I've been able to get out quite a bit of good information in that group. If that's something you'd be interested in, it's like I said, it's 9 o'clock. Casey does a really good job of starting right at 9 o'clock, and we're usually done by 10:55, or not 10:55, not 2 hours, 9:55. You're out by 10 o'clock. It's a very informative meeting. Whether you're a member of the chamber or not, I think you'd be welcome there. We've had everyone from health department leaders to talk to us about COVID, to Dane from the hospital, and several other people that come in. It's a very informative meeting that I think would be advantageous to anybody who's interested in what's going on in the lake community at large. If you need more information on that, feel free to either reach out to the chamber directly or to me, and I can facilitate you getting on that call as well. Now, as far as the economic development position, I think, this topic has come up several times in our meeting. I feel like we have
came up today.
Yeah, I feel like we kind of have consensus that we maybe think that's a good idea. So before we close out the meeting, would a motion to make that recommendation to the board be appropriate? Does anybody think that might be an idea?
Well, and that's kind of been my question with some of the meetings. I mean, we do spin a lot of ideas. We have a lot of discussions, but have we packaged anything together to put forward to the board, right? Whether it be events or, the veterans ideas and different things, how we have all kinds of ideas, and they kind of go off in a variety of different little tangents about all the different things that we could do, but can we summarize it put it in a box and put a bow on it and say, hey board, here's one of the first things, that your illustrious committee here has come up with. And it sounds like I'm hoping that there's some way that we can do that and get value out of this. And yeah, that would be the big question, because it seems to be this seems to be the elephant in the room here. A body whose job it is to do exactly what we're talking about.
Isn't that what the subcommittee was discussed for? The subcommittee was going to try to summarize and come up with something that could be presented to the committee, and then if approved, onto the board.
I think that is.
Luke, I'll just say my impression, of course, I know I missed one meeting and I'm not sure, but my impression was the subcommittee was to focus on the events, but maybe I'm wrong. I may have it all wrong.
Yeah, that was the one committee that we had talked about. I can go back to the meetings, the notes, the minutes. Yeah, create a subcommittee. Yeah, I guess. Yep.
But they're going to be
That had
focused
something
on
to do with
events, right?
Events.
Well, I'm looking back. I think we discussed two separate subcommittees at the time.
Oh, okay.
Well, do we have money in the budget for an economic development person?
Not currently for 2021, no.
That's what, so we should, I mean, we can recommend, but don't we
Sure.
need to be doing something on the events, even though they're small, have some kind of movement?
I'm sorry, I don't want to take over it all, but I think that whether it's, I think the best way the city, this committee could serve the city is determine one or two types of events that you think would be beneficial, if you even feel that's the case. Right? I mean, there's a million different events that could be had. I was kind of hoping Tim might say, there's a weekend in April that we don't have much events down here. It'd be really cool to do. Who knows? Arts and Crafts Festival. That's been what's been brought up and before in the past in conversation with Phyllis, and Phyllis wasn't able to make it tonight. But whatever that might be, and we didn't quite get that, and that's okay. Maybe there isn't a gap, but in the end, there's no budget necessarily for this committee to go do something, but there is money in the budget for economic development. And there is some money in there for events, community events and promotions. And if it's not enough, if somebody was to come to us with what the board was to agree was a great idea and they needed more funding than what we've got in there, and I kind of doubt that would happen, but it's possible, we can always do a budget amendment. We're not out of money. The checking account does not have zero in it.
That sounds great. And I think that's where we certainly starting small, like we were talking about earlier, but I also heard Tim, he talked about a grander vision, not necessarily concentrating on tomorrow, but 5 years from now. And there might not be a budget, say, for example, a development director, but there could be in 2022. And maybe that budget needs to be looked at now and make that happen for 2022. And, I don't know how many times you said you need someone to go out and get these people to come here. You need someone to go out and talk to Merker. You need someone to go out and do this and this and this. I don't know that this committee is going to be able to do that, but so whether or not there's a budget for it, I don't know that would negate perhaps putting that in there as a recommendation.
Oh, absolutely not.
Right.
Right. Yeah. I think Janelle said earlier, if you guys recommend that we pass a property tax, that who knows, that's the city's problem to figure out how to get it done. And I'm not suggesting that we should. I'd probably be the last thing that anybody's ever going to pass or recommend around here. Point is, you got the space is wide open. Your recommendations are your recommendations. We need public input.
Yeah.
Right. And budget should not be a consideration in my estimation.
Correct.
That's your job, not ours.
Absolutely.
Well, and just because it's not in the budget right now doesn't mean that money can't, that it wouldn't, that it's not possible. It doesn't mean that
Exactly.
just because it's not written in there, it's not written in there right now. No, but that's, I think, if our committee recommends that, and like I said, I think Alderman Ross has, the ability to bring that to the board. He's kind of our conduit to the board.
And don't let budget years get in the way. For example, if this committee was to tie up the loose ends and put, as Corey talked about, package it up, put it in a box, put a bow on it, send it up, and that was in the middle of March, and maybe, and I'm not suggesting this, please, but let's just say your first thing was an economic development coordinator, director, whatever you want to call it, that costs $100,000. I don't know, but what there couldn't be money found for that in the middle of the year. We don't have to wait till the budget of 2021 or 22 is what I'm saying.
Well, I'll certainly make the motion to have the city seek, how should you say this? I would move to have the city seek development director position. Keep it simple.
Economic development.
I'll second it.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
No,
Okay, we had one no.
correct.
Was that Jim, if you don't mind?
No, that was Chris.
That's Chris.
Okay.
I've missed a few meetings and I'm new and I have some background. Everybody has their own experiences they're bringing to the table. And I don't know that there's been enough discussion from what I've heard from this group on the validity of having a sole person that's the economic developer for Osage Beach as absolutely necessary for moving forward with economic development. So that's why I voted no. So
Fair enough. Now, would you feel more comfortable if it was worded differently to say something effective? We recommend the city at least explore the possibility of it, to do more, to recommend that the city do more research on it, to give us more, like I said, I don't know that that legwork is necessary for this committee to do, but if we can say as a committee that we think the city should at least explore it, would that be something you'd feel more comfortable with, Chris?
yes, in the sense that I was agreeing with Corey and what Corey was saying, and the fact that I don't think that it's kind of bundled up yet from this committee to present anything to the aldermen for their consideration. But I do think that it's something that it'd be worthwhile for us to recommend to the city to move forward with investigation into the validity of creating that position for the city.
And Alderman Ross, I may look for your guidance here on how to proceed procedurally based on that, because we had one motion, we had it seconded, we voted on it.
Well, generally from a Robert's rules, which is what runs these meetings, for lack of a better term, that was approved. I mean, you can make another motion can be made.
Amend it? Can we amend it? Is that possible?
You can amend it. That's, but that actually it should have been amended in the middle.
Right. Obviously. Right.
Correct.
But if you guys change, I think the most effective way this committee can operate with the board right now is to package it up, put it in a box, put a bow on it. I don't think it should come one at a time, if you will. Okay. So it could be a one-page document, PowerPoint, that says the committee has decided that these were the 5 highest priorities and the things that the city should focus on. But I think that it will have more power if there's 1 or 5. If there's only 1, okay. But if there's 3 or 5 or something that eventually come up out of this, that it gets packaged and put together as an overall recommendation of the ideas, and maybe they might have some priority behind them.
Right.
There probably should be some logic behind why it was X over Y over Z from a priority standpoint. And once you all package it up and feel like you pretty much, for lack of better terms, left no stone unturned, then I think that put that however that document looks and send it up to the board.
Very good.
And I totally agree with Alderman Ross. The motion was made, seconded, and voted on. The only part of that didn't happen was discussion before the vote. And that's where we could have, flushed this out. So maybe the recommender could have, amended at that time. But technically, this vote has been cast and it's just a vote. So.
Yep. I agree.
There's probably time to revisit that motion if the committee feels strongly about that. So at another meeting or something along the way, as you start finalizing and putting all the squares bottom and top on that box.
Because really, at this point, it was a motion, it was passed, but then at this point, where does it go? Like, what happened? It goes in the minutes, and that's available for the alderman to take a look at. But does anything really happen?
Well, since I'm the one who raised my hand and started this, I think in keeping in spirit with what Alderman Ross had just discussed, I'm trying to think about what are going to be, as he mentioned, those items that we think are critical to be considered of what we're recommending, right? I'm not suggesting that we should take that one recommendation and send it to the next board meeting, right? But certainly I would imagine well, it sounds like it anyway. The majority of us agree that that's something we should certainly explore doing. And then now we can move on. We've talked about that at several meetings now. I would consider that idea firm, locked into place. And now we can move on to, okay, let's talk about the next thing and kind of start to kind of build that vision, if you will. Maybe next thing we talk about is, are we going to do an entertainment district? Are we going to do a tax? Are we going to do TIFs and CIDs and, revitalize the outlet malls, whatever it is, whatever the next big thing is, at least that piece has kind of been, okay, it sounds like majority of us agree that that's definitely something we want to do. And now we move on to the next thing. And whether or not we put it all in one big thing and present it hopefully soon, but maybe a year from now, I don't know, but soon to the board to actually go through, or whether we do it one at a time, I'll be honest, I'm not really sure. But that's certainly my intent by making that motion, was to kind of, okay, yeah, that's something we want to do. That's certainly going to be on our list. What's next? That was my intent anyway.
Yep, I think you're right.
No matter what we do, you're going to have to understand that publicity is going to be number one. You've got to publicize anything that we do and make sure that it's known, instead of, we can talk about anything, but you've got to make sure it's publicized some way, shape, or form.
How would you suggest we do that?
Well, Angel being one, to make sure that things are done that way, make sure that people are aware. You have motels here all over. Make brochures up or some kind of a flyer that they could be given for future events. There's a lot of things that could, be enhanced that way. Once we get going. But you just have to remember that. There's things that can be done, but if it's not publicized, it's not going anywhere.
Are you talking about
events? Whoops.
And maybe that's the next thing we tackle, we have it listed on our agenda, promotion of the city, but what does that mean, right?
Right.
So, what do we should promote the city. Tell the board we should promote the city.
Right.
Okay, great. What's that really mean though? Where are we lacking? What are some avenues that we haven't explored yet? That kind of thing. So maybe that's the next thing we tackle.
Mm-hmm.
Branding.
Yeah. I do remember, for example, in Smithville, where I was actually as alderman there, we did a branding survey for the city and sent that out to all the residents. Sometimes the cost of those things just seems a little wasteful, but it became the basis of just about every other decision the city made, and for lack of participation or whatever, you got to have some sort of something tangible that you can base decisions on, and at the city level. And if the branding survey became that, then that's what it became. So the branding survey went out to all the different residents. They all said why they moved here, what they like about here, that kind of thing. And then that became a document that helped drive some future decisions, on development specifically, actually. So yeah, that kind of thing. And I'm sure it's been done before. That's just something that, when you said branding, that is certainly something that came to my mind.
All right. So I guess where does that leave us now then?
Well, I don't think that if you're talking specifically to the motion I made, I don't think it leaves us anywhere really. I think we have to decide what we do with the approved motions and how we present them. So if we, I don't see that we have to do anything specifically today or tomorrow or any other day, but simply put that, again, kind of put that on the back burner as a solid recommendation, and then maybe move on to the next thing. And at least that's what I was trying to do.
If I know this is kind of off the wall a little bit, but I wonder if we would, what he said, put it on the back burner and now let's start working. Because if we just give a suggestion to the board, they're going to say, oh, I agree, but can't pay for it. It goes to the side. But if we could come up with, let's go a little deeper and enhance what Corey said. When we sold our business, one of the things I think maybe a lot of us may want to think about is a lot of these real estate companies have commercial agents that then they can come, because that's the way mine came around. Casey's was looking, they came to us and wanted to buy a little portion of our property, and we said no. But that told the commercial agent that we would consider, that we were talking. And then he's the one that went out, he found, yes, it's on the back burner still, but there's a TIF, and it eventually, I think, will come. But maybe if we would talk to some commercial agents just to see what their ideas are for commercial, to enhance the economic development. I don't mean work with them only. I'm just saying getting different ideas. And then like the Lordak, if they came, we do a little talking with these people at our meetings, get some ideas. Then when we give that suggestion to the board, we can say, well, what about A, B, C? It's just a thought to help them, because I can't imagine the board, if we just say, we think we should have economic development, they're going to say, okay.
Right.
They're going to come back to us and say, how are you going to pay for it?
Yeah.
I don't know. It just, when we did the last one, about the enhancement of the west side of the bridge, after the board meeting, and we talked, then I sent a letter for each topic, and then what was discussed, and then topic and what was discussed, so that the board had something to see more than just a line. It was what we were talking about. I don't know, that's just the way we did it before. Because you'd ask, how do we present it?
Right.
Two things. I sometimes ramble a lot.
It's okay. It's called brainstorming.
Mhm. Nothing.
But I, again, take it in the spirit of for what I was looking at, again, using Tim's presentation as a backstop to what my motion was based on. Get a vision, recommend grand plans, worry about paying for it later. And that's easy to say, but thinking about not tomorrow or next year, but maybe a long term, that would probably be that position would probably be very beneficial. Okay,
Oh,
so now we turn around and we start looking at the west side of the lake. Okay, would an entertainment district, with some TIF funding, would that be something we'd want to have the board explore? And then what does that consist of? Or promotion of the city, and what does that consist of? Or that kind of thing. And then when we're all done, which I'm not sure how long we have, but when we're all done and get all that put together, and then one grand recommendation might be, because it's a lot easier to pick from 5 than it is just one thing at a time. We have six recommendations. Maybe they could even be prioritized.
Yeah, like I said, and if we give them 6 recommendations and they adopt one, I think that's a win for this committee. Wouldn't I mean? I'd feel like that'd be a win for the committee, wouldn't it? But maybe not. Maybe obviously it would be great if we went 6 for 6, but sometimes but if we got one thing to the committee, got it through, I think that would at least and me just being the ever optimist, I would view that as a win.
I think
There's
my only
also-
concern. Oh, sorry.
No, you go ahead.
Okay, I think my only concern is when we start coming up with these recommendations is time. I've seen it with, obviously we've all seen it through the politics lens that these things take forever to bring fruit. And I just don't know that when we come up with these ideas and we present them to the board, how long do we wait? Do we wait a month? Do we wait a year? Do we wait until we're completely done? And then, the longer you wait, the more the potential for things to change or things get worse, that kind of thing. So
Yeah, and things change. Yeah, you're right. It's an ever changing environment, no matter what. It's a good point.
I think we have to remember too, that no matter what we recommend, whether it is event related or whether it's related to the economic developer position, whatever we recommend, somebody has to execute. And right now, I don't know who in the city is waiting for a job to land in their lap if we say we're recommending an event. I mean, I don't think our committee is intended in any way to put together and run the event. At least maybe that's my misconception. I think that we are a think tank as much as anything, not intended to execute the idea.
I don't believe there was any intent on the board's part to expect any execution from this, of any events from this group. Okay, it was.
So whatever the recommendation is, somebody has to execute it.
Mhm.
And I think the key, I think that's key as well, recommendation. Because I think that's all the power we have is recommendation.
Right.
So even if we do say the city will hire a development director, well, when it gets up to the board, they're going to have their own, process to go through that. And obviously they can always say no. But they too can say, well, it's a recommendation to hire a development director. However, as the city board, we're going to spend the next year exploring what that position would look like, whether or not it's needed or whatever. And we'll take that recommendation under advisement. How about that? You know, those famous words.
Well, I think every time we bring a suggestion or whatever, there's now, it may not go anywhere, but there's a kernel of, maybe that's, you know, it's there. It's once you've mentioned it or talked about it, people keep, you know, we talk about the west side of the bridge and the right side. Now, I don't know if either one of them is doing that fantastic. I mean, I think we're working at it, it'll grow. But anyway, I think that there's a kernel of it, just the thought, it'll start moving eventually.
And it puts it on the record as well, you know.
Sure.
Something else that I don't know how many, there was an article in the paper this week about this lawsuit. And I think Osage Beach should be aware of marketing a little bit more, because if that lawsuit goes the way that, I don't know, being part of that TCLA over the years, and that's what promotes the lake. And if they take that away due to this lawsuit, it could be very drastic here. So I just think it's something we need to put on, I don't know, think about it a little bit. If you don't know, it's in the free paper, and then I haven't seen it in the Lake Sun yet, but it's kind of a crazy thing. And it may not go anywhere, but it's in the courts, and they could tie up all the funding as of July for next year, the 2022. Everything's a year off, just like the city, but it's just something I think everyone be aware of.
I think the city's fairly well aware of what's going on over there, at least of what was reported. I even had a conversation with Sue Westenhaven today to try to better understand what her perspective was compared to what was reported. So I know at least myself, and I'm certain John goes to the TCLA meetings. I think he's at the CBB meetings.
No, I agree. It just could be a drastic thing if something,
right.
You never know. I never thought it'd go this far.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and that brings up a good point too, with some of these different things I've been hearing about. You know, the lawsuit is one, and I just, you know, found this LORAD or whatever, however you want to call it. There's a lot of entities out there all trying to do the same thing, but they're doing it for more than just us. And I think it's really hard to fixate just on the city with some of this stuff. So it makes it a little difficult.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree. I'm just saying that if it would go through or something that stalemates, the city may have to try and help push the promotion of the lake a little more. I mean, I know we're committed to only Osage Beach. I mean, in the past, that's basically what they've done. It just kind of threw me a little bit. That's my soapbox.
Appreciate that. I guess we need to establish the next meeting. Would probably be the next step here. Is that, and we've been doing the first Wednesday. And I was looking at the calendar. That would be January 6th, if we're sticking with the first Wednesday.
Yes.
Yes.
So I guess I would entertain a motion for that. And this time we'll have some discussion.
I make a motion that our next official meeting will be January 6th at 6 o'clock. That
Via Zoom.
Yeah.
Zoom?
There you
I'll second that.
Corey seconds it. Any discussion on that date? Does that work for everybody? Anybody have anything conflict there or anything like that?
Nope.
All right, hearing none, I will take a vote. So all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Well, we still have quorum, I think. Yes, 1, 2, 3, 4. Yes, we still do. Okay. And then I guess I would entertain a motion to adjourn, or do we have
Well,
anything?
before
Oh, go
we
ahead.
adjourn, I just want to point a clarification here. So I know last meetings I went at, we're trying to do them twice a month. So from what I'm hearing, we're just doing it once a month then.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. And that's fine. I just,
At least in December.
okay.
Yeah,
Just
I
need to
think-
adjust my calendar.
There you go.
Anybody would like to motion to adjourn?
I motion adjourn.
Gloria?
I'll second it.
Denise seconds that. There's no discussion.
No.
I will take a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We will see you guys on the 6th of January.
Thank you.
Merry Christmas.
Merry
Everybody have a
Christmas
great
to you.
holiday.
Very
Thank you, Angel. I appreciate your help on that.